Okay, well, I want to welcome everybody. My name is Mark White. I'm the director of the Gulf of Mexico Division for the Environmental Protection Agency. And the purpose of these sessions is to learn about the bipartisan infrastructure law, otherwise known as bill, and the funding received by the Gulf of Mexico Division, but more importantly, for GMD to hear from you all about project ideas that would directly benefit the underserved communities under this request for applications. And I want to stress, I just want to stress how important it is that when the time comes during this session for you to speak up and give your ideas, how much that helps us to create this request for applications and make a better one for everyone that wants to apply. So please speak up. Uh, Also, if you are experiencing any technical difficulties, please let us know using the chat box. Also, please refrain from submitting questions in the chat box until we have the public comment period. This session, along with the comment period, is being recorded and will be available on our website following today's meeting. And with that, I'd like to pass it on to Diane for her presentation.
Diane, you're on mute.
Ah, now can you hear me? Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Hi, I'm Diane Reese. I'm a project officer for Gulf of Mexico Division, and I'm just going to go off camera right here to preserve the integrity of the presentation. So the Gulf of Mexico Division is an EPA Great Water Body program established in 1988 that develops and identifies novel approaches critical to long-term restoration and preservation of the Gulf of Mexico, its watershed and communities. Gulf of Mexico Division responds to emerging environmental public health concerns as well as continues to work around existing efforts with a proven impact on the Gulf conservation and resilience. So, Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, or WIJA, commonly referred to as the bipartisan infrastructure law, invests over $1 trillion in transportation, broadband internet, climate, energy, and environmental resiliency, and more. Of the $1 trillion, over $60 billion was provided to the Environmental Protection Agency for clean water infrastructure. And of that $60 billion, over $53 million was allocated to the Gulf of Mexico Division over 5 years to develop funding opportunities under Clean Water Act 104b3, which authorizes the award of assistance agreements to conduct and promote the coordination and acceleration of research, investigations, experiments, training, demonstrations, surveys, and studies relating to the causes, effects, extent, prevention, reduction, and elimination of pollution. Since its inception in 1988, the Gulf of Mexico Division, with cooperation of its partners, successfully implements and funds projects that lead to a thriving ecosystem. The projects center around our 4 measures: habitat restoration, environmental education and outreach, community resilience, and water quality. Habitat restoration focuses on improving and/or restoring water and habitat quality in watersheds throughout the 5 Gulf states and the Mississippi River. To the left in the slide, you can see the Nature Conservancy led this project, which supports the development and demonstration of a forest management program, which directly benefits water quality and quantity, in addition to downstream basin wetlands, swamps, and the Apalachicola Bay habitats. In addition, prescribed fire training is prescribed to local municipalities, land management partners, and regional volunteer fire departments. On the right, the Coalition to Restore Coastal Louisiana works to restore and enhance coastal swamp forest habitat near the city of New Orleans and provides volunteer opportunities that are accessible and accommodating to urban communities. This project investigates tree survival rates post-planting and demonstrates the viability of planting native bottomland hardwood forest trees in a coastal swamp forest habitat. Environmental education and outreach focuses on promoting and supporting environmental education and outreach. To the left, we have a project by Mississippi State University that refines and expands the Planet Marsh educational program and develops a complementary dune planet component called Planet Dunes to enhance community resilience using education and outreach and habitat restoration practices in the Gulf of Mexico watershed. Utilizing citizen science, Mobile Baykeepers, which is shown on the right, its Mobile Baykeeper Strategic Watershed Awareness and Monitoring Program, otherwise known as SWAMP, educates and trains students to monitor specific waterways so that they are equipped to solve water quality issues in their local watershed by filling in critical data gaps. All of GMD's efforts are cornerstones to environmental stewardship. GMD's goal is to heighten citizens' appreciation of the Gulf, which is believed to lead to positive behavioral practices. This can be accomplished by developing hands-on environmental initiatives and engaging citizens in restoration programs and projects. Community resilience focuses on supporting the development and implementation of coastal improvement programs, projects, and tools that enhance community planning, risk assessment, green infrastructure, or includes community planning, risk assessment, green infrastructure, and smart growth implementation. On the left, you see a project for Mississippi State University Coastal Research and Extension Center. They work with restaurants, local universities, community groups, and residents to improve water quality and habitat by eliminating single-use plastic and reducing waste using a diverse, inclusive, creative, and multi-scale approach. This project is focused on eliminating the use of plastic before it becomes waste. To the right, we have Sustaining Our Urban Landscape, which is working to reduce non-point source pollution and enhance community resilience using green infrastructure practices in the Gulf of Mexico watershed. To date, over 850 large native water-loving trees such as bald cypress and live oak have been planted in the historic neighborhood of Pontchartrain Park in New Orleans, with another 650 planned. Monitoring of the impact to stormwater will also be performed. Water quality focuses on protecting, enhancing, and restoring coastal and upland habitats. On the left, you see Northwest Florida Water Management District is improving water quality in the Gulf of Mexico through nutrient in the form of algae removal from retention ponds to reduce dependency on commercial fertilizer. This project demonstrates how nutrients that are discharged within the Gulf of Mexico watershed from farming operations can be captured and reused on site, resulting in an algae biomass that can be used as a fertilizer amendment and processed water that can be used for irrigation, resulting in a closed-loop farming system. On the right, Louisiana State University is working to identify sources of microbial pollution to discern where intervention is needed in a tributary of the Gulf of Mexico. They are testing a novel solution to further treat wastewater utilizing devices that combine ultraviolet light emitting diodes with chlorine. GMD continuously works with the Gulf Coast states to maximize efficiency and utility of water quality monitoring efforts for local managers and supports efforts to improve water quality and habitat quality to meet water quality standards throughout the 5 Gulf states and Mississippi River Basin. So let's go over this one more time. The Gulf of Mexico Division is a non-regulatory geographic program under the EPA, and our work is centered around preserving and protecting the Gulf. We do this primarily through funding assistance agreements based on our statutory authority to conduct and promote coordination and acceleration of research, investigations, trainings, demonstrations, surveys, and studies relating to the causes, effects, extent, prevention, reduction, and elimination of water pollution, as seen in 104(b)(3) of the Clean Water Act. It is shown here also on this slide. Our funding authority is also influenced by current administrative priorities, the EPA strategic plan, and the Gulf of Mexico's 4 priority measures that we provided examples for: habitat restoration, water quality, community resilience, education, and outreach. Based on our funding authority, we would like to provide some examples of the types of projects we can and cannot fund. Please keep in mind the following details as you prepare to provide project ideas during the live comment period. The following projects are generally not permitted. Actions to require a formal settlement action or included in a court order or a specified required mitigation measure. Grant funding may be used to enhance or expand such projects beyond minimum requirements for compliance. We may not fund routine maintenance of stormwater infrastructure or facilities. We can't fund projects that fall under existing planning responsibilities of an individual state or local government, such as development of total maximum daily loads, TMDLs, or MS4 permits. We also cannot fund routine great infrastructure projects, such as the installation of sewer lines and water treatment plants, and we also cannot fund construction projects. Some projects that we have funded in the past include green infrastructure implementation like living shorelines and pollinator gardens. We've also supported the development of community resilience planning tools, educational programs, trainings, workshop, and curricula. We've supported the restoration of dune, marsh, and coastal forest habitats. We've also supported innovative water quality improvement and monitoring techniques like microbial source tracking and guides for plastic alternatives. There are numerous examples of projects we funded, from prescribed burns and invasive species removal to workforce development and programs educating students on environmental issues, all of which can be found on Gulf of Mexico's story map, which is located on our website. Please keep in mind that all projects must meet Clean Water Act 104(b)(3) as noted here on this slide. Before moving on to our comment period, we want to acknowledge that there may be some larger scale projects that will have components that we cannot fund based on our authority. However, if you can show funding from an alternative source that will cover the activities that GMD cannot fund, we may be able to fund the portion of the project where activities fall in line with 104(b)(3). And now I'm going to pass it over to our facilitator, Keisha.
Thanks, Diane. I appreciate that. I am Lakeisha Robertson, Chief of Staff in the Gulf of Mexico Division, and I will serve as your facilitator for today's session. I am also turning off my camera to preserve our bandwidth. And if you can give me a thumbs up just to make sure you hear me. Thank you. I appreciate that. The development of this new request for applications funded by the bipartisan infrastructure law will build upon our 4 measures, while project activities must focus on underserved communities. We plan to award up to $25 million across the 5 Gulf states, with approximately $5 million in each state. So how can you leverage the Gulf of Mexico Division's 4 focus areas? And they are habitat restoration, environmental education and outreach, community resilience, and water quality to address the needs of underserved communities. We want to hear from you to best inform the development of our request for applications. A project idea could be: you live in a community where flooding is a huge concern. Rapid development around this area has increased storm runoff. Trash accumulation in the local bayous has created choking points that increase the flooding risk. These issues affect the community's resilience due to the increased flooding risk and the trash-filled bayous that are causing water quality concerns. A project example could include water quality workshops, along with education on flood risk. A trash collection device could be installed, which would prevent overflow of trash downstream, and or a bioswale or other type of green infrastructure to mitigate flooding. Before we start the comment portion of this webinar, here are some instructions. If you wish to make a comment, please use the raise your hand feature or dial *5 on the phone. Once your name has been called, Please unmute your line and limit your response to 3 minutes or less. Please remember to unselect the raise hand button and mute your microphone when you have finished your comment. If you have any questions, please use the chat box, or you may email us questions after the session. Questions submitted via the chat box will not be addressed live. However, questions submitted through the box will be answered within the same forum. We plan to have our last comments around 3:45. However, if we have extra time and you'd like to speak again, you are more than welcome to raise your hand. We'd like to remind everyone that this session, along with the comment period, is being recorded and will be available on our website following this afternoon session. We ask, when speaking, please introduce yourself and provide a brief description of your project idea and how the Gulf of Mexico Division's funding can help implement them. While we understand that environmental issues affecting communities serve as the basis for project ideas, we're excited to hear more about the activities that would be of great benefit to those communities. At this moment, I will pause to see if we have anyone that would like to make comments and provide us with any project ideas that you may have to inform the development of our bill request for applications. So I will pause. Jason, you may unmute yourself.
Hey, this is Jason Barrett with Mississippi State University. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I figured that somebody had to be first, so I would go ahead and raise my hand. So yeah, I would say, this does interest me because I feel like what we are, I'm gonna say, doing at a larger scale could really impact or really affect the coastal region on at least three of your pieces: the environmental education outreach, water quality, and community resiliency. Because in Mississippi, those coastal counties, we have an abundance of private wells and on-site wastewater or decentralized wastewater, and some type of program, and I'm going to say in our vein of educating homeowners on private wells, educating homeowners on home septic system about the proper maintenance, operation, upkeep of it is one great educational piece. Plus allowing some type of screening, bacteriological, coliform E. coli, and then also allowing them to understand the time frame in which we should be screening those wells at least once a year, if not a little more frequent, especially if they see something. So to me, that could blend with that community resiliency. Because one thing we've seen on the Mississippi coast, I mean, it's been almost 18 years since Katrina. Even though we've got a large number of the utility districts, we still have a large number of people own private wells and own septic system. And being in this flood prone area, to me, it would be a lot of the homeowners of private wells and septic to just understand what they have, the impact of flooding on themselves, and to know some best practices moving forward. So, Lakeisha, those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Jason. Does anyone else have any comments? Any project ideas that you'd like to share with us tonight? Or today, I should say. Christian, please unmute yourself.
Hey, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Christian Miller with Mobile Bay National Estuary Program. I just had a couple, really just a general question. You had mentioned that you were unable to fund construction. So I was just wondering if you could expand a little bit more on that. We've got a lot of projects that would probably be good fits that have been identified through a watershed planning process related to, green infrastructure, stormwater management, living shorelines, but they would all have, what I would consider a construction component to them. So are you saying you can't fund any kind of construction, or just give me a little bit more detail on that, please?
Christian, what we can do, because not only you may have that questions, I'm sure, I'm sorry, I'm sure others have that question as well. We can send an email out to all of you that participated in today's session, because what we don't want to do is misspeak, but we want to make sure that our legal folks have had an opportunity to weigh in on any response that we provide to the public to keep us in compliance with our statutory authority. So we'll be sure to get information out to you and others following the call today. Do you have a project idea that you would like to recommend to us, Christian?
Nothing specific, but I mean, I think we've got, depending on what exactly you can fund related to construction, there's potential to do a lot of projects in coastal Alabama.
Okay, and feel free to speak to what you have in mind, because it potentially could be something that we could fund, and that's something we would take under consideration. So if you have something you want to share right now with the group, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have something specific in mind. I mean, I'm just
Okay.
kind of talking generally here.
Okay, okay. Thank you. We appreciate it. We'll circle back.
I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Johnny, please unmute yourself.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about a project that I'm working on. I come from the College of Education at the University of Alabama, Johnny Lakin, I'm a professor there. And I work with a lot of engineers and scientists through our Water Institute. And one of the things we had talked about was there's a lot of wastewater problems in the Black Belt. And so we had talked about research projects led by school children. So, you know, maybe as young as like 3rd, 4th grade, the kind of thing that would go to like a science fair or some kind of presentation, but meaningful, authentic research, which with water can be done out in the field without needing to have the kind of safety protocols of a lab. If it was addressing the needs of that community in terms of wastewater management and access to clean water, would that kind of fit with what the RFA might include? So children leading research projects related to water quality, basically.
Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Brady, please unmute yourself.
Hi, good afternoon, Lakeisha.
Hey, we can hear you.
Okay, great. I kind of just wanted to get further clarification or offer support of further clarification on construction, because we've certainly been active with a lot of the non-point source work in and around the most populous areas of Louisiana and have been funded by the Gulf of Mexico program for those activities. But one of the things we see is in our non-point source work, we have, unfortunately, communities, renters, for instance, that don't have the means or the wherewithal to make improvements to the systems in a house that they're served by. And there's also, unfortunately, some folks can get connected to CDBG funding, but other folks don't qualify. Maybe they're just over the poverty level guidelines that are stated for it. And, to deny access to certain funds is certainly key for those homeowners, but that's not to say that other folks downstream of that denial isn't impacted. So I guess I didn't know, we have this idea about non-point source work, but I didn't know if it would qualify as a construction activity to replace or refurbish some of these non-point source wastewater treatment systems. And I guess that would rely on a little further clarification of construction activities.
And we'll be sure to share information once we've vetted it through our legal with the group, Brady. But thank you for the project idea you're speaking to. We'll take what you're saying back and have a conversation with our folks internally.
Sure, if I can help, if you need any further talking about it, I'm happy to as well.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Do we have others that would like to provide input? Hi, Aaron. You may unmute yourself.
Hi, Lakeisha. Thank you. So one thing I'm thinking about here in here in Louisiana, one area we've been working is with aerobic treatment units for on-site sewage, and most of these units are installed, permitted, and then we never hear from them again. And so one of the things that I think would be an interesting opportunity is using the idea of soft sensors and Internet of Things to begin to kind of collect some information on how these systems are actually functioning over time, because after we install them, oftentimes we don't know how effective they are in their treatment. And so it would be interesting to have these systems installed that could basically draw our attention to systems that might need some routine maintenance or some attention from something like a circuit rider or something like that. So looking at the possibility of installing some soft sensors into these systems, and then some sort of like cellular based notification technology to try to do a better job of maintaining these on-site systems, I think would be an interesting opportunity.
Thank you, Aaron. Letty, you may unmute yourself, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Letty Wadajo. I'm a research scientist at the University of Mississippi. So I want to mention nature-based solutions such as infiltration-based green infrastructure that enhance runoff infiltration and reduce surface runoff and recharge groundwater are being used to relieve urban runoff problems. But although these methods have been demonstrated to be effective, I think research is needed to understand the fate of the surface runoff captured and its impact in shallow groundwater environments. For example, understanding where the infiltrated surface runoff goes can help evaluate if there is interaction with local groundwater and contamination. So further research on quantifying the spatial variations of hydraulic conditions and selecting suitable areas is needed for an improved design and placement of infiltration-based green infrastructures. That's my take.
Thank you. Do we have others that would like to provide input? All right. Catherine, I see your hand is up from our staff.
To interject really quick, there have been actually a few comments on infrastructure and construction type projects. As Keisha said, we can provide more info if you email us, we can get that to you. But I also wanted to let everyone know that I had questions about construction. If you look in your chat box, I did provide some brief information about the type of projects we could not fund. And if you did have additional questions, I also put an email address in there for you to email us and we can provide more information.
Thank you, Catherine. Daryl, please unmute yourself.
Hey, y'all. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm Daryl Boudreaux with the Northwest Florida Water Management District. And there are a couple of communities that we're working with. One, Port St. Joe, over on the east end of our district. Another is the Sylvania Heights, Gap Creek community on the western end. And both those communities are having significant flooding issues because they were developed way before stormwater regulations were put in place, both due to the floodplain being built in where their homes are, And so what would love is if the RFP could include projects like those where studies could be done on the sub watershed to identify where nature-based stormwater ponds and, stormwater parks could be put in that would both address the stormwater and the flooding issue, but also create habitat and improve community resilience. And we've been having quite a time trying to find the right grant source for those, but these have been long-standing issues in communities that really deserve a hand up. So those, I know there's more across the panhandle, but those are the two that come to mind. And if there's a way to at least get those projects started from a study to look at where to put the projects, and then, we could look at other sources for constructing them. Unless y'all want to do both, that would be great. But I appreciate the time to get that on your radar. And if you have any questions, just let me know. Thanks
Thank you,
again
Daryl.
for all the outreach y'all are doing.
Thank you. Are there others that would like to provide input? And if we have folks that are on the phone, just remember you can dial *5, and it will let us know that you would like to provide a comment. Hi, Matt. You can unmute yourself.
Hey, good afternoon, Lakeisha. Thanks so much for the opportunity for the listening session. Just a few things to cover, I think, fairly high level. I'd say a greater focus for the RFA could focus in 4 areas that are of interest to us. Those include monitoring, green infrastructure, coastal restoration, and capacity building. So for our area, focusing enhanced monitoring efforts, which could include microbial source tracking in underserved communities, would be of importance. We have numerous WIBIDs throughout the bay systems that have a verified impairment for bacteria, and trying to get to the root source of that bacteria is paramount to working with the local governments and utilities to address that problem. Many of which are located in and around underserved communities. Related to capacity building, this is certainly something that I think would help every organization as more of these funding opportunities are made available, is to be able to get out into the underserved communities to assist them where feasible and where needed to identify and implement address the needs of their respective communities. As it relates to green infrastructure, I know this was talked about quite a bit in the opening slides, certainly as a priority for our communities in our region, and continuing on to support green infrastructure, whether that's stormwater parks or interceptor trees or green roofs. There are a lot of needs in many of our underserved communities that could address both water quality and water quantity issues. And we'd certainly be supportive of that effort, and particularly as it relates to green infrastructure, looking to see if there could be a cost share or incentive type program that works with private property owners to implement some of these green infrastructure practices on their properties that back up to our coastal waters. And then just restoration, coastal restoration as a whole. The Pensacola and Prudhoe Bay's Estuary Program is working on some large-scale oyster restoration in the Pensacola Bay system that does serve an underserved community, and so continuing to have support and resources to go towards that larger restoration initiative would be helpful over the coming years. So certainly, if there's anything else that comes to mind, I'll be sure to forward that along through the email inbox, and appreciate the time.
Hi, everyone. I think we lost Keisha for the moment, so I'm filling in. My name's Philip. but we really appreciate everybody's feedback and comments that have been provided up to this point. We do hope there are still a few people or a few individuals that want to provide some more feedback. So please don't be shy and feel free to raise your hand and keep sharing with us your great ideas. So Mark, I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Thank you, Phil. I was just going to say that just throwing some ideas out there to help maybe get some creative juices flowing. There's like one project example might be where that there's an oyster reef created or built, and you could say have a relay program where underserved fishermen are paid to go take the oysters from an existing reef that may be deemed non-harvestable, classified as non-harvestable. And anyway, they're paid to relay those oysters to this new oyster reef, and then after a certain amount of time, they can go in and harvest those. But that's an example of a potential project idea. I just wanted to throw that out there to see if that would help get some ideas flowing.
Does anyone have any thoughts around the example Mark provided or anything similar that you would like to share with us today? We definitely want you all's input as we work on developing this request for applications. We want it to be intentional and would like to hear your feedback. Well, what are some current or past projects that your organization has successfully worked on that would potentially serve or be well inform our RFA development? You can tell us about those types of projects, projects that maybe weren't as successful as you imagined they could have been due to the lack of funding. So we want to hear your successes and projects that that likely could have benefited from additional funding. Daryl, unmute yourself.
Well, I didn't know if I could do a go back.
Yes, you can do a go back.
Couple other ideas if y'all, so two others that come to mind is in the Panama City Bay County area. We've got the city of Springfield and Parker, both have seen significant flooding for many years and potentially that was exacerbated by Hurricane Michael. And the Army Corps, well, EPA did a R2P2 project after Michael, and their priority was addressing the flooding that they get around Lake Martin. And the top two priorities that came out of the Army Corps H&H study was lowering the weir of Lake Martin and then doing dredging on the upward end. And so we've submitted that project working with the estuary program over there to restore the floodplain and the feeder channel on the north side of Lake Martin, and still trying to get some funding for that. But that project would restore the creek, the floodplain, and then put in some stormwater upland or stormwater wetlands to provide an amenity for the community and help moderate the water getting into Lake Martin. And then another project that we've been working on is over in Lynn Haven, and they've got about a 300-acre subwatershed that was put in before stormwater rules were put in place, and it goes into a wetland area and then out into the bayou. And that project is, we've got the commercial developer that had about 20 acres donated to the city to expand that stormwater wetland area. And then the city would like to put in a bay saver type device. So I guess that's a question is, would your funding include or fund a hybrid project where you're expanding stormwater wetland area, but also putting in a bay saver type device so that the sediment and the debris could be concentrated there versus filling in the wetland over time? So it's just a couple other project ideas. And
We
thank you
appreciate
again.
that. Thank you, Daryl. We appreciate it. If you think of others, you may raise your hand again if we have the time. Thank you. Lucas, please unmute yourself.
Hi, how are y'all?
Doing well, thank you.
Excellent. So my name is Lucas Gregory. I'm one of the associate directors of the Texas Water Resources Institute, and we work doing watershed-based planning and implementation type activities all across the great state of Texas. So I've got two projects, I guess, to suggest and kind of ask a few questions about, and I'll start with one, and if I run out of time, I'll raise my hand again for the second. But the first, and these are successful projects that we've implemented across the state, are septic system repair and replacement projects. And as was mentioned previously, there's a lot of underserved communities out there that rely solely on septic systems and may or may not be properly performing maintenance on those systems. So essentially their functional status is questionable at best. So I've realized that construction is not an allowed, I guess, expense on these type of funds, and I guess you could argue that installing a brand new septic system would be considered a construction type project. But my question, I guess, is multifold. First is, would a repair to an existing septic system to bring it back up to functional status count as a construction activity? And then a second aspect of the question is, would maybe like a small neighborhood sized demonstration where we go in, repair and replace all the septic systems in the neighborhood and do water quality testing to demonstrate whether or not that level of intensive repair or replacement type activity has a marked increase or improvement on in-stream water quality? Would that count as a demonstration project that's allowable?
The first part of your question, that's one we would definitely need to confer with legal on. The second part of it, potentially, yes, I think it could count. But what we're doing tonight is we're taking input. We do plan to run these recommendations by our legal counsel just to make sure they comply with our statutory authority. So we
Right.
appreciate all input provided tonight, although we may not be able to answer whether or not that they fall under the category of construction truly or not right now. We do plan to take these ideas back to get clarity around. And as we receive clarification on construction and what we can potentially do, as Catherine mentioned, we'll be sure to circle back to the group.
Okay. I appreciate that. And
Thank
I
you.
would put a strong vote in favor of allowing those types of projects, because there are quite a few instances of those underserved communities having basically non-existent septic systems to basically manage their waste, and it does have a significant impact on all water bodies, not just coastal water bodies, but certainly in those coastal areas it does have a even bigger impact, just because you're closer to those recreation areas where people are much more likely to be in contact with any pathogens that are not properly treated.
Thank you. We appreciate the input. Are there others that would like to provide input? And please know we don't want you to feel as if you're confined to a specific comment that you may provide. Although we talked about not having the ability to support construction projects, but as I just said, and others have said as well, we want to hear your input. So don't feel as if you're limited. We want to hear your recommendation, your project ideas. If it's something we can do, we will take it under consideration. If we can't, you just know that we tried our best to get your idea on the table and we have to, of course, abide by our legal requirements. I know there's been other ideas that we've talked about internally, and Mark, I didn't know if you wanted to come on again just to maybe mention a second idea.
I'm always full of ideas, Lakeisha, you know that. There's another example might be, you could have these high schools have career technical centers, and they have different programs, like early childhood, culinary, but some have an aquaculture program or coastal resiliency. It could be partnering with one of these schools to help them set up or to expand their coastal resiliency or aquaculture program. That would also count as an idea. Another one would be uh, partnering with an underserved area that has maybe issues with flooding, and it could be as easy as they need trash removed from their ditches and the culverts. It could also involve trash-free water component, providing education and outreach to that community, and even adding some green infrastructure that might help with divert the flow or help slow down the flow of water in that area. So those are a couple of ideas. I don't know if that helps anyone think of something.
Thank you, Mark. Scott, feel free to unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you all for the opportunity. My name is Scott Tomplay. I'm with the Louisiana Department of Environmental Quality. I work in multiple programs. I just wanted to kind of comment about the potential of partnering some of these types of fundings or projects. So I've heard on the construction aspect, we're trying to kick off a program to upgrade some of these on-site or individual home systems. Part of the issues we've had though is we don't want to spend the money to upgrade them and then in a few years get back to the same part of them not maintaining those systems. And so I don't know if there's any type of, I'm looking at training and demonstrations or some type of investigation or something that would be like an ongoing, not necessarily a maintenance, but just an ongoing type something that's done to where if these are upgraded in a community, there's some type of oversight. And I know one of the gentlemen asked about some kind of sensors or something. Then I think that's a great idea to at least let you know, like if there's issues with the system or if it is starting to fail. Another completely separate program, we're working to try to fund natural channel design or redesign. And so in a lot of our streams, they've had some man-made straightening of channels and whatnot, but that has actually exacerbated flooding on downstream areas. And so in some of those areas, we're looking to, redevelop those streams to kind of add the floodways. But we are kind of struggling with finding sources to fund those types of projects. And so, maybe partnering some funds, may be an option. One of the other things that was mentioned was kind of on the out or the high schools, we do have some part of our program that does watershed outreach. And so it's to kind of let the public in these areas know of different projects or programs that we have ongoing. And so we've had some handout materials, but other ideas of things that, could come to the table for that as a way to kind of reach the communities and all of the folks within these communities. Another one of the ideas that's already been mentioned too is the trash trap. That has been a component of some of our projects before on a watershed based scale and trying to remove the trash from the waters. And so, a lot of it comes down to, unfortunately, the funding aspect or limitations of other programs. And so, I would look into the possibility of co-funding or some kind of joint funding between some of these programs. Thanks.
Thank you. We appreciate the input. Are there others that would like to provide input today? And if you've spoken already, please feel free to provide additional input if you have any. Hey, Johnny.
Hey, if I can jump back on, and Mark basically said what I was just thinking about, which was that I think it would be interesting to fund a project where we could set up a lab that worked on, water quality, water treatment. So one project that my colleagues are working on is, wastewater treatment and building a septic system that works with the black belt kind of soil and geological issues. And so they have, funding to do the kind of demonstration site. And so our interest as educators was how to use that demonstration site to teach students about water quality and those kind of career paths. So I could imagine applying for funding to set up a lab where students could do that research locally in consultation, mentoring with those, practicing scientists and engineers in their region. So I could see it being like a lab space or like Mark was mentioning, training them for specific kinds of water treatment career paths. And I know we have a lot of researchers who want to do that. So I could almost see it as being like a little bit open-ended with lots of options for collaboration with our colleagues in science and engineering, but it could have a really specific training focus, like he was mentioning before too. And one thing we have in our region is everyone has this region of fertilizers and the agricultural impacts on the water. So that could be something, that very specific to our Black Belt region. And thanks again for the opportunity.
Thank you. We appreciate your input. Are there others with project ideas? And just a general reminder again, if we have folks on the phone, please remember that you can dial *5 to raise your hand. And as stated before, if you've provided input and have additional thoughts, please feel free to share. All right. Hey, Aaron.
Hey, I'm gonna try another bite at the apple. One of the things, so we've been working with Pontchartrain Conservancy, having a look at the effects of ATUs and some local water bodies. And one of the things that I work on is microbial risk assessment. So when these systems are discharging pathogens, what's the downstream risk from a public health perspective? And here in coastal Louisiana, obviously these systems are discharging into pretty complex hydrologic and hydraulic networks. And so I think there's a really interesting opportunity to have a look at kind of like integrating microbial risk assessment and hydrologic modeling to estimate health risks associated with some of these discharges. And the reason I think that's particularly compelling is because we can start to look at different scenarios and we can actually start to kind of contribute to like cost benefit analysis in terms of, let's say you make repairs to X amount of these systems, what's the benefit from a health perspective downstream? Similar, one thing we're thinking about right now is disinfection. So we can kind of, we're working on a basic model to look at, okay, if we are able to disinfect and achieve like a 2 log reduction, what does that gain us in terms of decreased human health risk associated with these water bodies? But I think there's an opportunity to definitely expand that work and actually do some more, integrate better hydraulic and hydrologic models to make these models maybe more accurate, and use those to inform policy decision making at the state and local level.
Thank you, Aaron. Are there others that would like to provide input? We want to make sure we are capturing your thoughts. So please feel free to provide any inputs you have. Hey, Johnny.
Sorry, there's one thing I thought of as soon as I got off the call. I hope there will be some direction, like if we have collaborations across states, like we work with folks in Mississippi pretty often. I know you said that'd be like 5 million kind of per state. If there was direction on how we could be collaborative across state lines, that would be great.
Okay, that's a great recommendation. Thank you. And if anyone has similar thoughts around what Johnny just mentioned, please feel free to share. Any recommendations, thoughts, ideas, we're open. Hey, Jason.
Yeah, I'm going off of, I guess it was Joni that just spoke a second ago. Yeah, and Joni, same here. We do some work mainly either in Alabama coastal or Florida coastal. So again, it would be nice to have some direction on, you know, should we just stay in our lane of our individual state, or is there, you know, benefit for collaborative efforts if we're trying to do, you know, as I mentioned, private wells, decentralized systems, if we're looking to do something potentially in Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida, you know, if that joint regional effort, you know, was more attractive. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Any other thoughts? And I'll open it up to my team as well. If you guys have any other thoughts, ideas that we want to put out there. And please, again, remember, if you're thinking that a project could potentially be construction and kind of on the fence as to whether or not you should mention it, mention it. We can always vet it. All right. And let me just check to make sure. I don't see a hand, and I don't think anyone has raised their hand from the phone. We truly appreciate everyone's time in taking part in today's conversation. Your input is much appreciated. We do plan to take what we've heard back and have some internal conversations, and we do plan to talk to our legal counsel as well, just to get more clarity around our ability to fund projects that you guys have mentioned tonight that we could not particularly say yay or nay to. So we plan to take those back to our legal counsel to get some guidance on how we should proceed. But please know, this is not your last opportunity to provide input to us. We do have, I think it's a thank you. Then on this slide, you can send your input to us via the email address listed, or you could participate in our next listening session, which is May 25th. It's going to be from 2:30 to 4 Central Time. And when you email, if you plan to send additional input via email, please use the subject bill feedback. That way we know when we're pulling information together that this information you're providing is specifically for the bill RFA that we will be developing. I think Catherine has put this information in the chat, so you may copy and paste it if you need to. But we just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules. Thank you for the input provided, for the questions and the recommendations. Have a good evening, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks again for doing this. Y'all have a wonderful day.
Thank
You're very
you.
welcome.